Join us for a look at the best Hellhound out there.
Spiking bits.
Hey, welcome back everybody. Today we are gonna dig into the Artemia Pattern Hellhound. I'm gonna show you how I painted this beast. This isn't a tutorial, this is more of a showcase, just to give you some tips and tricks on its rules, how it plays, where to get it from, the good, the bad, and the ugly on this plucky little tank. So first up, this is a 4-year-old kit. We'll show you the site here in a second. But overall, it's not a very hard build for anyone. Pretty much, if you built existing guard tanks, you should have no problem putting this together. Now, painting it, well, that's just personal preference. Now we'll get the bad out of the way. So this is 4-year-old's website, of course, and now they have that new pricing in your own currency, i.e. pay 20% more at the very minimum for the same product that you could have got in August. And consequently, or conversely, or whatever word you want to add in right there, it just so happens that this is the very last thing I ever purchased from 4-year-old directly from their website, because as soon as they announced that they would be coming with regional pricing, I was like, yep, everything's going to go up in price. Let me get some stuff I need right now before I have to pay more for it. And sure enough, when I purchased this model, it was the low 60s. Well, now it is $84 from them right here. Also, I'm not trying to talk them down. G-Dubs has his policies. They're never going to go back on them. But I just want everybody to be aware of that's where we're at in 2018 or whenever you might be actually watching this video. Also, something to be aware of. This particular picture here is of the original Chimera Chassis, the one that had multiple parts and you had to put the tread all together. It was pretty much a nightmare. They redesigned it in the late 2000s into what you see now coming with the basilisks and stuff. But that brings me to my next point, which you're going to see as we take a closer look at the model. These back areas here on the fuel tank do not line up, which is really weird how this whole works, because this is actually all pewter, or all resin, excuse me, and I don't know whether it's a slip fault from Forge World, but all three of the Artemia Pattern Hellhounds I ordered from them have these issues right here. And something else that they're not gonna do, that they maybe just don't know or didn't show you or haven't updated the picture since 2006 or whenever this was taken first released, is that underneath here you're gonna have to do a lot of work to get it to line up with the two plates that they provide you. And there's still going to be a little bit of gappage that you need to be aware of. So besides that, the rest of it goes together pretty well. But for the most part, you don't have to do a whole lot of work underneath it if you don't want to. It just kind of depends on, hey, are people going to be picking my tank up and looking at it? Now that we've got the bad out of the way, I wanted to talk to you about the tank itself. It's a neat little build. It's fun. It's plucky on the tabletop, which we'll talk about some of the rules here in a second. I've actually blue tacked down the fuel tank here, but you can keep this separate and have it as an objective or a secondary terrain piece. This turret, you don't have to glue it down if you don't want to. I actually didn't even glue this in here and painted this and primed this a separate metal so that it could be painted all together when I actually put it on the tank. You don't just spray that differently. But overall, like I said, there's going to be a little bit of work that you have to do right here because this doesn't quite line up. So you're going to have to cut a gash. You're actually going to have to gash the new kit right here in order to get the resin pieces to slide in there. And then, like I said, unfortunately, these little, where is it? This supports kind of don't line up. I don't know if you can see it here, but there's supposed to be a spot on the tank here and they just don't line up quite right. But that's just kind of nitpicky stuff that really doesn't matter. You can't even really tell by looking at it. But the rest of it's just a really fun little tank to really kind of grind out. Now, paint wise, we use just our normal gray workup, which you've probably seen here on live stream a bunch of times over on Twitch, but it's just over a gray primer, cold gray worked up to stonewall gray in the highlight areas right here, and then we just cut it back with a little bit of matte black in these areas right here. The treads themselves were all, there's a nifty little way you can paint treads, and that's just don't even paint them at all like metal or anything like that. And then all you need to do is just come in with a little bit of a brown. I like to favor Reaper Harvest Brown. We just hit all the areas around it, about out to right here with some of that. and then come in with some black and cut it back around those treads, which you see right there, which kind of splashes in the darker color. And then we just come and sponge in a little bit of metal right there to make it look like they're all worn and kind of grody as far as that goes, and seen a lot of wear. The red itself is super easy to do. It's just the Army Painter standard workup: Chaos Red, Dragon Red, and Pure Red. And cut back with a little burnt umber in the gaps, and then again with a little bit of black. Just kind of how much depth do you want to go? It's really up to you right there. And the greens are super easy. You've probably seen the greens on this channel a bunch, but they are just the Privateer Press, Iosin, Necrotite, or Necrite, whatever you want to call it, and Flush Gets Yellow, or any super bright yellow. I think Babe Yellow from Army Painter would also work very well. The tips of the barrels, super easy to do. Just some of that Harvest Brown burnt out with a little black on the end and sponged on a little bit of metal, very similar to the treads right there. We could have used the Secret Weapon Miniatures Sweet Heat workup, which is super fun and makes it, you know, kind of go from that purple to like blue, like it's superheated steel. It's matte enough that you can kind of pull it off as on fantasy war games, but the historical guys really don't seem to like it that much, which is okay, because yeah, this isn't historical miniatures. And then you can kind of see what you can do on some of these areas back here with a little bit of Harvest Brown and a little bit of black, just kind of having some fun and mudding it up without any mud or any, you know, significant time investment in salting or doing any sort of that crazy weathering or anything like that. It's just all pretty much airbrush work, a little bit of sponge, and just matting it down, and you're good to go. Painting tanks is actually secretly easy for the most part. Now, how does this play on the tabletop? Well, let's take a look. So currently, the rules for the Artemia Pattern Hellhound are in the Imperial Armor Astra Militarum Index. Now, this is pre-chapter proof, so I'm not even sure if all these points costs are going to be accurate as of the time this video comes out. If they're not, I apologize, but hey, with 40K changing, you know, every 4 months or so, it's hard to put out content besides on the hobby side that actually stays relevant for any period of time. Now, I'll be honest with you, the major reason folks are taking this particular unit is because it's a 20-point savings over the conventional Forge World, or excuse me, plastic Hellhound miniature from Games Workshop, right? So that kind of makes a lot more sense once you start thinking about it. So if you pull up its points, it's 81 points compared to the normal Hellhound, normal plastic Hellhound, which I think with the heavy bolter is approximately 101 points. So you're already getting, you know, roughly a 20-point savings on a Hellhound model, which in my opinion, this kit looks way better than the plastic Hellhound. And even if, you know, it wasn't as good as that plastic Hellhound, I would still keep these because they just look better. You know, personal preference, right? That's why a lot of us buy Forge World. Also another good thing about the Artemia Pattern Hellhound is that it actually does more damage than the regular Hellhound. Its Inferno Cannon does 2 damage, where the normal just Inferno Cannon does 1 damage, which is, you know, I guess it is just the way it is right there. Now you can add in, you know, flamers and stuff if you want. It's all fine. This is a fast attack slot, which actually kind of makes sense because a lot of folks are taking brigades of guard now at this point because you're getting all those extra command points. So if you're not taking, you know, say Deathcore Krieg Rough Riders right here, or maybe you're taking 2 squads of 5, that's great, but you still have an open fast attack slot because you got to take 3. Well, why not splash into Artemia Hellhound or take 3 Artemia Hellhounds? Now, they can get bogged down by infantry, unfortunately. You know, they can envelope them, they can tri-tip them, and by tri-tipping, I mean, you know, when your tank's on the table and you have, you know, say 3 units, if you can't physically move the tank, then you're kind of locked in. You can't fall back, and now you're just stuck, and you can't run off and score objectives or keep people from scoring objectives. And it's a huge problem in the current 40K meta because it seems like infantry has so much of a larger leg up on the just tanks in general. Anything that can't fly or anything that can't kind of get out of combat in a way that has a special mechanic, it's very, very difficult. You know, once you get locked down, you're kind of pinned, and then your options become pretty much moot at that point. So that kind of explains why folks are gravitating towards this particular model. But personally, I think it's one of those instances that, and I'm not trying to Debbie Downer Forge World, although it does come out from time to time, because people have been coming at them left and right here in the past year and a half. I mean, we're still playing with an index instead of real actual rules for our models, right? But I like this design more than the plastic one, and I think regardless of whatever changes with chapter approved or anything like that, I'll continue using it because it looks dope. And again, that's probably the big thing that brings people to Forge World in the first place, is just getting those dope looking models to add to that one last thing for their army that perhaps it really doesn't have quite yet. So that's what I like about Forge World, and for me that's the dream that Forge World still keeps alive through all of their missteps in the last year and a half. So that's it for this episode, this hobby showcase. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any particular questions about any of the painting techniques or tips, you can check them out all in the VODs over on our Twitch. We also have quick reference guides on our Patreon as well on how we painted all this stuff. And there's plenty of posts out on spikybits.com, the main website, to boot as well. But a lot of this content, if it isn't already out on the site, it will be very shortly. So that's it for this one. I hope you enjoyed it. Please hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you can be the very first to like and comment on all our posts.
Spiky Bits.